And welcome once again to The Verdict. Mick Cornett with Kent Myers. We're glad you're here. We're here each week talking with interesting people and talking about topical issues. And today we meet one of our favorite guests.
Yes, a return guest, Scott Meacham, the State Treasurer of the state of Oklahoma. A lot going on in his area, both from the standpoint of revenue, from the standpoint of legislative activity. And he always stays busy anyway. So we're pleased he'd come back and talk to us again.
State Treasurer Scott Meacham, today's guest on The Verdict. We'll be right back.
Every day America uses clean-burning natural gas instead of coal or oil is a day of victory for our environment. That's why Chesapeake chose to explore for natural gas exclusively, and we've never looked back. Because natural gas burns twice as clean as oil or coal, and reducing carbon emissions to combat potential global warming is every bit as urgent as cutting our dependence on energy imports. As America's #1 driller of new gas wells, Chesapeake is moving fast to find untapped reserves of natural gas here at home. It's the right fuel for America's economy and the fuel for a clean air future. We just happen to be early to see it so clearly. Chesapeake, natural gas wins the day.
Welcome back to the set of The Verdict. Mick Cornett with Kent Myers, and Kent's going to introduce today's guest.
Really pleased today to welcome back the Honorable Scott Meacham, the Treasurer of the state of Oklahoma, for another visit with us on The Verdict. Scott is an Oklahoma native, graduated from the University of Oklahoma with his undergraduate degree in finance, appropriately enough, and a law degree. Was a certified financial planner and a banker for a number of years. Is the 17th State Treasurer of the state of Oklahoma. In 2006, was elected to his first full 4-year term. We're awfully pleased to have you back. Welcome.
Good to be here.
Welcome back to the show, Treasurer. In the session currently, and people are looking at some level of a shortfall. Based on the taping of this show, what can you tell us? What should we expect this year?
Well, you know, I think that we've gone through a period the last 4 years where we've had the most rapid revenue growth in our state's history, about 10.5% a year growth in revenues. And what happened is the legislature made a lot of tax cuts and they made a lot of spending commitments. And this year, that rate of growth has slowed down like we knew it would eventually. And I think it's that squeeze they're feeling this year. So we're going to see probably a little over $100 million less to have to spend this year than they had last year because of that.
So is there a revenue shortfall year to year?
No, it's not a revenue shortfall. It's just a decrease in the total amount that they have to spend this year versus last year. And again, it's because of those things, because of tax cuts, because of spending commitments they made, those types of things.
So the economy is still growing?
Yes, absolutely. And that's what people need to understand. Oklahoma's economy is growing. It's growing at a slower pace, but it is still growing.
Well, at the pace it's growing now, based upon the new numbers, is that equivalent, less, or greater than the growth in the years prior to that 10% plus growth spurt?
Well, I mean, if you remember, we went through a recession before that, and we actually had a revenue shortfall in starting in 2001 and through about 2003. And so the economy went through one of its worst periods during that time, and then we turned around and did 4 years of the best 4 years we've ever had in Oklahoma. So, you know, now it's returning to more of a normal rate of growth. But you have to remember, we've cut over $500 million in taxes during that 4-year period. So, you know, you feel that obviously when you cut those taxes unless you outgrow it. And that's what we'd been doing the years before this. We'd had such a rapid growth, we'd outgrown our tax cuts and our spending.
As a state treasurer, how do you interact with national economists, or do you have your own economists that deal with national issues?
No, we do. We interact both nationally and, of course, locally, and we consult the national economist in doing our forecast on what rates are going to be and what we think the state will earn on the funds we manage them, and you know, the general direction of the economy. And you try to do both, because the national economy obviously influences the local economy, so you try to consult both national and local experts to get hopefully the best idea.
What are our surrounding states experiencing as far as their projections are concerned, if you know?
Well, I think Oklahoma has certainly been, over the last 4 years, as I said earlier, we tied Alaska as the most rapidly growing economy in terms of total state revenues produced, and far outstripped all the other states in this region. The states that have a lot of energy, Louisiana, Texas, they do relatively well. The states that haven't had as much energy have not done as well. And so that's kind of what we see in this region.
What's the, if you can pinpoint it, the primary cause of the fewer dollars to spend?
Well,
would it be the tax cuts?
Well, I think it's both, because we made some big commitments on the spending side, and we made some big commitments on the tax cut side. On the spending side, a perfect example is the OLAP Scholarship Fund. Some people call it Oklahoma's Promise, that gives kids that make below a certain income level, $50,000 a year family income, provides college money for them to go to college. Well, we said we're going to commit to fully funding that. We're going to take that off the top. So that came out of the pot that the legislature has to spend. But also those tax cuts that we've phased in is also coming out. So it's really both of those things that are squeezing things tighter and you know, we're going to have to tighten our belt.
Mm-hmm. Well, the session has just begun for this year. Are you getting any sense of where the belt is likely to be tightened more than other places, like education, corrections, wherever the various categories might fit?
Well, I don't think we can afford to tighten the belt any more than it's already tightened in corrections. Our correction system is underfunded as it is. Obviously, we don't want to skimp on education, because then we're sort of stealing from the long-term prosperity of our state if we do that. So I think we'll focus on those core areas, you know, healthcare, education, public safety, and then I think it just means you don't get to do much else other than that and fund those core areas.
On your revenue streams, you're a very diversified state from a revenue stream standpoint. Is there any further diversification you'd like to see? Have you looked at any models in any other states that you're envious of?
You know, every state takes different approaches on how they allocate their tax burden. You know, people talk about Texas a lot, that Texas doesn't have a state income tax. Well, Texas has a very high property tax. So in any state, the relative tax burden in Oklahoma is very low. If you look at all of our state and local taxes and you put it on a national scale, we're in the very bottom, probably 10 states on our rate of tax burden on our citizens. It's just how you allocate it. And different states have different ideas how to do it. You know, I think if you do it like a heavy property tax like Texas, I think that's sort of unfair on property owners. I think that the allocation we have is more fair than a lot of states, because it allocates it, as you said, broadly. You have a little bit of income tax. Actually, over half our state revenues come from the income tax. A little bit of sales tax, that's about a quarter of our state revenues. And then, of course, we have gross production that comes next. So by spreading it out a little bit more, then no one sector is hit so hard.
Mm-hmm. Gross production tax segment, is that staying the same, increasing, decreasing?
It's been generally increasing over, let's say, the last 5 years. It is this year versus last year probably decreasing because prices have pulled back a little bit. A lot of people think, you know, it's the biggest segment of the state budget. It's really probably only about 12% of our total state revenues, but it influences income tax collections and sales tax collections. So it is a very important, probably the most important segment of our economy.
If the economy is growing, is the treasurer's office busier, or in years like this, is it busier? What's the work level for you guys?
I think it differs. What we did when we came in is we focused on trying to diversify the portfolio to make it earn more money and to sort of hedge against interest rate risk. Because what had happened in the past was the Treasurer's portfolio went up and down with interest rates dramatically. And they earned, I think, $50 million a year before I came in. We've increased it to like $160 million now. We're facing a big drop in interest rates. And what that would have been in the past would have been a large decrease in earnings. Well, we'll probably only see about a $5 million decrease because we've diversified the portfolio. So what you do in the good times and what you do in the bad times, it really doesn't change. You're still busy. You just do different things. If that makes sense.
It does. We're going to have one more segment with Treasurer Scott Meacham, so stay with us. You're watching The Verdict.
All children deserve a life of hope and love, but sometimes they experience a life of pain, neglect, and abuse.
When that happens, each child deserves all the quality assistance and representation that can be offered in our legal system. For more information, call 23-CHILD.
Oklahoma Lawyers for Children, helping to bring hope and love back to the lives of abused children.
That land next door was a mess. Take more than a lawnmower to revive that land. I heard the oil and natural gas people was cleaning up old oil sites, and it wouldn't cost us a plug nickel. Oh yes, sir, it was quite a revival. The whole church showed up, want to make a playground for the kids. It sure is a blessing.
Wilsey, Meyer, Eatman, Tate. We're accountants. We do taxes, business valuations, estate planning, and consulting. And we're right here in Oklahoma, working with the owners of small and medium-sized businesses. Steve Wilsey and Stuart Meyer have the resources and the experience. Wilsey, Meyer, Eatman, Tate in Oklahoma City and Tulsa.
Welcome back to The Verdict. Mick Cornett, Kent Myers, and our guest, State Treasurer Scott Meacham. Tell us about the College Savings Plan.
What I like to tell people is the Oklahoma College Savings Plan is absolutely the best way for Oklahoma families to save for college. Really nothing compares to it. What the state has done in this plan is said to families, you can take a write-off on your Oklahoma income taxes up to $20,000 per family, $10,000 per individual for amounts you put in the plan. It grows free of any federal or state income tax. And then when you pull it out, as long as you use it for college, any college-related expenses, tuition, room board, fees, any of those types of things, or even cost of a certified technical school, then there's absolutely no tax. I mean, there's nothing else out there like it.
That is pretty good.
You say put it aside. Where do they put it?
Well, you put it in in the Oklahoma College Savings Plan. What we do is we have a plan, and people can come online and get information and sign up or get the forms, and then it goes into one of 6 different investment options, depending on how aggressive you want to be or how conservative. In fact, right now we're in the middle of doing a big promotion, trying to get people just to find out a little bit more about the plan and what a great deal it is. We're giving away 2 sets of tickets to, like you said, OU fans and like you said, OSU fans, to the Big 12 tournament in Kansas City, men's basketball tournament. We're providing tickets to all 4 days of the session, and then 3 nights hotel and basketball jerseys and basketballs and all that. So if any of your viewers out there want to go online to www.ok4saving.org between now and March 3rd and sign up, there's no purchase required, and they hopefully will find out a little bit more about the plan.
Well, when did you start that, or has it been going a while?
It actually started, a state senator by the name of Brad Henry actually carried the bill back in, I think it was about 2000 or 2001. So it's been in existence for a few years. It's really, I think, coming into its own now. We have almost $300 million in assets in the plan. We have some 38,000 Oklahoma families that have set up plans. So, I think it's, people are starting to find out more about it. Unfortunately, we don't have a lot of money to promote it, so we have to do things like this to build awareness of it, but it's really a great deal.
Well, a family that invests, we'll say $7,000 per year. I guess you can continue to add after you start.
Sure.
Can they use that money at any college, or does it have to be an Oklahoma college?
No, I mean, we hope our kids will stay here in state and go to college, but no, any college in the United States, and even accredited colleges outside the United States. I mean, it's a very, very flexible plan.
And your office administers that, manages the funds?
No, actually, I am chairman of the board that manages it, the Oklahoma College Savings Plan Board, and then there's a separate company that we contracted with called TIA-CREF, who's a big national financial firm that administers the plan and invests the funds.
Okay. Well, do you have any estimate how many students are in college now because of this program, or at least connected with this program?
I mean, all we really know is that we have some 30,000 plus plans out there. So we don't know how many are, currently drawing down from it, but we do know we have a significant number out there. But there's a whole lot more that we need to get signed up.
Well, if you were advising one-on-one, or somebody in your organization was advising a family one-on-one, how early would you tell the family to start?
Start now. I mean,
as opposed to where the child is in school.
Seriously, wherever you are, if your child has just been born, start now. If your child's in junior high, start now. If your child's in high school, start now.
What if your child has finished the first year of college?
Keep saving, because what happens is you're going to still have expenses. You can make contributions to the plan, take your tax deduction, and then pull the money out when you need it and spend it for those college expenses. So it's a way to use sort of pre-tax dollars to pay for college expenses in Oklahoma.
And can it be graduate work as well as undergraduate work?
Absolutely.
Well, one thing that you've talked about before on this show, and you're occasionally out at the State Fair about, I think, is the Unclaimed Property Act. Tell us what your office is doing in regard to that, and what's happening to the level of assets that are not claimed.
Well, we're holding some $260 million for 350,000 Oklahomans. So your chances of us having money for you are about 1 in 10, which I like to tell people is a lot better than your chances of winning the lottery. We're trying to be more aggressive and more proactive in pushing that out, and we've been very successful in increasing that. We've increased by more than 50% the number of claims that we've paid out. In fact, we just paid a lady the other day in Tulsa right under $1 million.
My goodness!
I know. She's so excited. She's authorized us to use this quote where she said, we made her an instant millionaire. So it's pretty amazing. And that's a lady we actually had to track her down to give her money back, because she didn't have any idea she had really lost it, and we had to go find her to give her money back. But we're doing a lot of things.
Give me an example of where do you find this money in the nooks and crannies of government and private sector?
Well, there's a whole lots of different ways. They can be unclaimed rent deposits, utility deposits. We get a lot of royalty checks where people move around and the companies lose track of them. This lady in Tulsa's story was real interesting because she had inherited physical stock certificates, and people don't get those very much anymore. And she thought that the physical stock certificate was the whole representation of value. And what happened is she was actually evicted because she fell on hard times. And when she was evicted, they took these boxes of papers that include these certificates and took them to the dump and threw them away. So she thought she'd lost her father's inheritance. And she didn't realize that, you could still go back to the company and get that money back. And so the companies eventually turned it over to us, and then we were able to reunite her with that.
What kind of effort does your office make to get the word out to Oklahomans about the unclaimed property?
We do. Of course, we maintain the website, which you can go onto the Treasurer's website and access that, where people can check their names at any time. We do the publications of just the new names that we get that you'll see in the papers, the big pot of gold publications. We do the outreach at fairs and home and garden shows and different things like that around the state. And then we just, do things like this, where we just kind of go out and tell people, hey, look, we might have some money for you.
Well, the presidential season is upon us. What's your thoughts on the campaigns going on?
I think it's fascinating to me, certainly on the Democrat side. I can't remember since I've been watching a Democrat primary that has gone this deep into the season, where it's still pretty much up in the air. And it's interesting where you had sort of one candidate that was kind of the one everybody thought was going to win at first, and then you have this sort of fresh face that's coming in and sort of regain momentum. I just think that's a fascinating dynamic. On the Republican side now, we've sort of seen that race is all pretty much over now. But the Democrat side it may go to the convention.
We've read a lot, not with glee, but read a lot of information about the state auditor's problems, legal problems, being indicted and the like. I know there is a working relationship between your office and the state auditor's office. I don't know what that is, but has the state auditor's legal problems impacted your office work at all?
It really hasn't. You know, he has taken a leave of absence and hasn't been there. I think he probably felt it would be too much of a distraction for him to be there, and I think that was the right decision. I think that his presence would have created a cloud. But the people that are still there are still going to work every day and still doing their jobs. I mean, in fact, I think they're auditing us right now on something. But as far as the ongoing work, the auditing that they do of state government, you know, I sort of laughed about them auditing us, but that's part of that's what they do. They audit the operations of state government to make sure we're all managing the money properly and taking care of things, and they're still doing that. You know, I think that's obviously there's going to be a cloud over the office until his legal situation is resolved, but it's really not affecting the day-to-day operations from my vantage point.
Good. We're going to have to get out of here. Scott Meacham, thanks for coming on The Verdict.
Thank you, Scott.
Thank you.
Ken and I'll have a final word right after this.
The good life comes naturally to Tulsa, where nature's beauty is matched with an eye for aesthetics. A legacy of neighborhoods graced with lawns and landscaping and handsome homes. A place that seems to have patented an ideal lifestyle. Bank First is loyal to the quality of life Tulsa assures its citizens, to the priority placed on education, culture, and growth. Loyal to builders who transform raw land into residential charm. Developers who see opportunity and add vitality to Tulsa's economy. Bank First serves both enterprise and private lives that need a loyal partner. It's how we help nurture this city's very good life. Bank First. Loyal to Oklahoma. Loyal to you.
The Journal-Record is pleased to be a sponsor of The Verdict. The Journal-Record, since 1903, the best source of Oklahoma business news and legal information.
Welcome back to the set of The Verdict. Mick Cornett with Kent Myers. We are wrapping up our show with State Treasurer Scott Meacham.
It's always good to have Scott back on. He tells us things that he knows are going on in the State Treasurer's office, what to expect in the future. Glad to have his explanation about the revenue shortfall, or however we want to characterize it, just knowing that there will be less money to spend this year than what we've been able to spend and the legislature's been able to appropriate in the past. Not apparently a serious problem for us, just a matter of belt tightening.
Yeah, and the terms that we use, you know, we call it a shortfall, yet the state economy has grown. We have more money than we did a year ago. We just have less than they frequently have had to spend, that discretionary money, I guess.
Yeah, still growing, but at a slightly lesser rate, but it does result in fewer dollars.
Oklahoma's economy reflecting the national economy. However, those states which rely on oil and natural gas seem to be doing better than other states, and so we're probably pretty fortunate overall.
Well, we really are, and we're also fortunate to have a state treasurer that we do in Scott Meacham, with a fellow that's educated in finance, has a long history of practical experience in finance, bright, hardworking. It's good to have the State Treasurer's office in such capable hands.
Well, let me go to a website and we can show you how you can get more information on Scott Meacham and the State Treasurer's office. There you see it on the screen. And also don't forget about our website, theverdict.tv. You can tell us about a show you'd like to see or a guest you'd like to hear from. For Kent Myers, I'm Mick Cornett. We'll see you next week when our guest will be State Chamber Representative Ron Cupp. We'll talk to you then.
The preceding program was produced exclusively for the Cox Channel.